Howdy there, everybody in YouTube land. So, welcome to part two. In this case, we're going to try to get this machine at least in a running condition again. So, at the current moment, I got a hard drive out of my stash, and I'm just low-level formatting it at the moment, or just, well, regular old formatting it in this point. So, I'm trying to figure out how I want to approach this thing because uh, I got to do this in a way where I'm not shooting myself in the foot. So, the problem with this machine is there's a chance that the BIOS might be unlocked where it can boot from external media, but there's also a chance it may not be. There's no expansion, there's no way to plug a drive into this thing except for the USB in the rear. So, I think what I'm going to have to do is set up a VM, and I'm going to need to format this hard drive in the virtual machine and get an OS loaded onto it, either if it's DOS with the Windows cab files or something loaded on that drive, so at least I can boot this machine into something, because otherwise there's no guarantee if I put the hard drive and button this thing all the way back up, if I plug a hard drive or a CD-ROM or a floppy in the USB, this thing is actually going to boot from it. There's no way to know that. So the only thing that I can do at this point is set up a drive through the virtual machine, so when I move the drive in here, it'll at least be in some sort of a bootable form, in theory. The other problem is going to be finding drivers for all of the hardware on this thing, so I'm going to have to go on the internet and make sure I get the 810 drivers. This machine is probably not going to run Windows XP because, well, it's only got 64 megabytes of RAM and it's a 300 CPU, but it will run 98 or possibly even Windows Millennium Edition. And I say that, and I'm probably going to get shot for saying that, but it could, in theory, run Windows Millennium. But I think I'm probably going to put Windows 98 Second Edition on this hardware. We'll see. I'll have to play around with that. But regardless, I need to get some sort of OS on this thing, and I need to get a bunch of crap copied onto the hard drive, like the USB mass storage drivers and everything else, just so I can actually use the hardware once it boots. So, anyways, I think that's what I'm going to do now. But in the meantime, while this is formatting, I'm going to go ahead and get my files ready to go anyways. So the way we're actually doing this is we're using VirtualBox. So what I had to do was go online and get the tutorial to map a physical drive as a VMDK file or VBox file or whatever it is, because I have it physical drive VMDK. So you can do that with the VBox manager and the command prompt, but then when you do that, you actually have to run VirtualBox as administrator or it won't allow you to have access to it. So anyways, so now we have to reset the machine. So right now I have a floppy disk, a Windows 98 floppy set up as a boot disk. So now we're going to format the hard drive as a system drive. Wait a minute, why is there no format? Okay, we have an F disk, but we don't have a format. What in the world? Nope. That's fun. So I got to format the drive, so give me a second. Had to go download another boot disk image that still has the RAM drive in it, because I've noticed a lot across the internet they got rid of that boot disk and replaced it with the one that does not have the RAM drive, which is, yeah, not good. So we are formatting the drive right now. Looks like it didn't do a full format. It did a quick format. So we're going to do that. And then now, in theory, let's see, I don't know if himem.sys is on there or anything like that. It may not be. Yeah, I'm going to have to probably, I'm going to have to copy all that on there. But anyways, I'm going to do all that. I'm going to copy the cab files over, and yeah, we should be good. Alright, so now I'm in the process of copying the cab files over, which is just about done here. Each one of these cab files would fit on a 1.68 megabyte DMF formatted floppy, so you could actually make a floppy install out of this, but you would need a lot of floppy disks. Alright, so that's done. Now, I did set up the C drive to be bootable with high mem sys. So it is bootable with high mem sys. So if I gotta create an auto exec.bat or it won't, or the high mem sys will be ignored. Alright, so that means in theory, I don't have to do it this way. I did it this way so I could boot it on the original machine, but I think for the sake of simplicity, and with Windows 98 it doesn't matter as much, yeah, I can just install 98 directly on it, so it should boot from the C drive. I'm going to get rid of this. So let's see, remove that. Machine, reset. Should boot straight from the hard drive. And it does. Alright, so now I can install Windows inside the VM. So when I move the drive over, it should just boot right into it. Alright, so while that is doing its thing and being installed, I'm going to go over here and work on the computer a little bit more. The battery, I pulled the battery out. It is dead. So I got a new pack of them. I'm going to go ahead and put a new battery in there. That way at least we can keep the proper time. So I'm going to need my knife to do that. And both hands. What I'm going to do so the hard drive, I put all that stuff in there. The last thing I want to do is put all this back together to put it in there just to tear it all back apart again if there's an issue. So what I'm going to do is I unplug the monitor cable, which is just a VGA cable as I suspected it would be. I'm going to plug a power supply into this, an ATX power supply, and a little LCD monitor, and just keep this off to the side because I want to try to run this without that for now, just to make sure the hard disk is going to get recognized and it's going to boot from it. Once I know that all of that's good, then I can put this guy all the way back together so I can put it back in the machine. Now, what I did do was when I ordered a replacement board to fix this guy, to see if I can't get the data back off of this drive, I also ordered a 600 megahertz CPU to go in here with a 100 FSB, which I think is all this board supports. You'd have to have an updated BIOS to support all the way up to the 133 and the 1.1 gigahertz Pentium 3 CPU. The problem is the microcode update's going to be for the non-OEM version of this board. Now, the D810 board is what this board is based off of from what I saw online. So I could get that BIOS and flash this board, but the problem is it's going to remove all of the OEM features, of course, but what I'm worried about is will it remove the code necessary to run this card, which runs all of those buttons and the monitor brightness and stuff. So that's my concern. So what would have to happen is someone would have to take the two BIOSes and patch it together into one BIOS to make this work properly. Now, there was a hack that someone did to this BIOS in the past to unlock it from the walled garden, because from what I understand, you can't boot on any external media or get into the BIOS or do anything except run from the hard drive. But I think there was a way that someone modified the BIOS to unlock all of those features. Now, what I don't know is if this machine was already flashed with that or not when it was packed in the box. Because like I said, the box was open before, right? So, entirely possible that this board was flashed to run standard versions of Windows and boot from external USB media, because USB boot was kind of in its infancy back when this board came out. So, because in '01, I didn't have any USB sticks at all or anything that was bootable USB. But anyway, so I'm going to hope that the way I prepared this hard drive is going to work in this scenario. So let's get it all wired up and see if it'll fire up. Alright, we're all wired up for show. Hard drive's just kind of laying there, board's back in, just got to plug the power in. It just came straight on. Alright. Do we have anything on screen? Yeah, we do. Memory size, 64 megs. We know what board we have. Let's see. I don't even have an F1. Interesting. I wonder if this is F1. So, this keyboard has no F keys. That is about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. Alright, well, that's the delete key. Will it boot? Yes, it's booting. Alright. Awesome. So my virtual machine method worked. Which I figured it would, but it's been years. Probably not going to be the fastest on this planet, but I'll be back when this gets done. And Windows, with all of its Windows glory, we get that. So I'm probably going to have to reinstall Windows. But hey, it boots. Mostly. Alright, well, the problem now becomes, I don't know where the reset button is on this thing, since I do not have a wiring diagram. Because even though it powered straight on, I bet if I unplug it and plug it in, it's not going to. But before I can even do anything, this keyboard is not useful because I need the F keys. Because without the F keys, I can't get into the setup and see what's going on. So, yeah, alright, well, let me piddle around with this a little more. Hey, we reinstalled 98 and now it's running, and then look at this. Hey, the trackpad works now. Wow, does the clicker work? Yes, it does. I'm not sure what that button does, but it doesn't map to anything. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I can't do a right click. So, yeah, anyways, seems to be working fine. I don't know what these keys do. Probably not much without something mapped to them, but it's working. And I got to figure out, okay, well, what drivers do I need to install still? Okay, device manager. Alright, I got a handful of unknown devices, but that still needs installed. There's no universal serial bus is installed. HID compliant. It's not really telling me anything. The keyboard. PCAT, that's wrong. It's not detecting it as a Spanish keyboard. Probably have to set it up. Anyways, seems to be working. Let's install, because right before I move the drive over, I put some stuff on it from the VM. So let's go ahead and get all of this stuff installed now. So let's do the USB driver. So that's done. I don't want to restart yet. And then chipset software installation utility. Let's get that guy installed. Yay. So, long drawn out process. Alright, so now with all of the drivers installed, Windows appears to be running. Now, there is a driver that is not installed, and I forgot that this machine does not, Windows 98 does not provide the hardware ID, but I think that's the modem, which is right here, but I don't really care about that right now. So now that I know the machine's working properly, all the drivers are installed, everything's all good, I'm actually going to change this back to 800 by 600 because I don't know if the original monitor can go that high, because the original monitor may not go 800 by 600. We'll apply that. Alright, so we'll keep that. And then we're going to shut this guy down, I think. So anyways, now that this thing is basically working, I'm going to go ahead and put it together and put it back into the system and get the system put back together. So I think we're at a good point where we can actually do that. So let's go ahead and get that guy done, because I really want to see how that monitor performs and how the rest of the hardware works. Alright, it's all back together minus the front face, because I don't want to put that back on in case I have to get back into this thing for some reason. So I don't remember if I put this on the right way. I think we can go on either way. Actually, no, it can't. Never mind. So yeah. Alright, well, here goes nothing. No power. Here we go. Hard drive spun up. Oh, I heard high voltage kick in. Do I have any raster? No, I do not. Oh, there it goes. Oh, cool. It's probably the first time this CRT has seen any use for who knows how long. But it's running now. It's running Windows 98. Dot pitch on it is not great, but it's not terrible. But I'm going to be honest, I have not seen a new old stock CRT in, perhaps since I've been alive. Actually, no, I think Dad bought a brand new one years ago. No mouse. Well, yeah, I've figured that much. But, so I have no idea. So it looks like the CRT is not adjustable. Well, oh yeah, it is. But I don't know if the geometry is adjustable. That's the only concern I have, because the geometry is off. Yeah, that'd be my only concern. The brightness works. These lights don't work, which I didn't figure they would, because the serial port, that weird serial port thing that's on the modem, is part of the modem, probably runs all these lights and stuff. But the brightness control is independent. It runs the monitor separate. Which doesn't. Yeah. It does. It runs everything separate. Alright, so I'm curious how you adjust the geometry. Not sure. But I bet the geometry is probably requires that like a special driver or something. I'm not entirely certain on that one. But hey, it works now, so let me grab the keyboard and mouse and get this thing actually set up in a respectable position. Anybody remember that?